Okay, I think I'm on recording now.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I'll make Sean a co-host. We're just going to give people a minute. Welcome to the seventh grade academic back to school orientation presentation. Just giving people a minute here to join in, and then we'll get rolling. Mr. Nason, I made you a co-host, so you should be able to join now with video. Other participants, we've been asked to keep video and audio off, but you'll be able to message us with questions later on in the chat. Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to get started now with the screen share. Thank you again for joining us. Okay. Francesca, can you see my screen? Do we look good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Okay, great. Again, my name is Mr. Koutsavlis. I'm one of the seventh grade math teachers. Welcome again to Curriculum Night Meet and Greet. We're going to be broadcasting to you live here from the Room 308 studios for about the next hour. So we're going to be doing the presentations for the major academic departments. And then around 5:30, we'll be closing off this Zoom. And then the arts presentation, I think, was it 5:30 or 6? At 6 later on tonight. Okay, so we're going to start with math. I'm going to go over the first few slides and then turn things over to my colleagues, Ms. Sue and Mr. Redica, and then we'll go into the other departments. If you have any issues, just please message us in the chat. Okay, so again, these are our names. I'm Mr. Koutsavlis. The students refer to me as Mr. K. That's fine. I work with Miss Sue with the ICT classes. Mr. Redica and Miss Mitchell are working with 704, and Mr. Redica is with 705 and 706. So what is expected for math? Just a quick overview for the math students in seventh grade. Just as we did in sixth grade, all the students are going to be doing work on ALEKS. We'll have a slide specifically for that in a little bit. We also want to make sure that I think we have, at least in the 70123 groups, all of the students now joined up for the Google Classroom. So if your child hasn't joined up into all of their Google Classrooms, please make sure they do that. We always want to emphasize that we want to show good work on our assignments. Come to class prepared to learn. It's okay. Yeah. And if you need help, please make sure to ask for it. That we always want to emphasize that. These are just some of the quick learning standards that are going to be the kind of core emphasis standards for grade 7. We do a lot of work with ratios and proportional relationships. We go into some work with the number system. We start talking more about negative numbers, do some work with fractions and decimals and percents. Then we move into a lot of our work with expressions and equations, which really allows us to lay the foundation for our students that go into the accelerated algebra class in 8th grade. So we teach students how to solve equations, work with expressions, and really lay the groundwork for when they go into Algebra 1 next year. We also do a little bit of work with statistics and probability. Our first unit talks about scale drawings. It's kind of a fun hands-on unit. We'll be looking at making scaled copies of images, doing some work with maps. And this also lets us explore some things with blueprints and various geometric figures, talking about scale drawings and area. We typically do quizzes once a week or so, and then we'll have a unit exam at the end of each unit. There's only 6 units or so for the entire year, so there aren't too many tests, typically only 1 or 2 each trimester. There's multiple quizzes, but in terms of the longer form unit exams, those are going to be only, like I said, two or so per marking period. Students have 8 periods of math weekly. So some days we're with them for a single period. Some days it's a double. Occasionally it's a block, sometimes it's split. At times, we are available to provide additional academic assistance for students. If students are struggling with the homework, we usually reserve 1 day a week for each class where students can come up for extra help with homework or ALEX. The NAA after school program also does offer some homework assistance as well. I just wanted to do a shout out to the Homework Help Hotline. I'm always trying to sort of amplify this as a resource for the kids. This is I posted a copy of this to the classroom page. We gave out some flyers as well. This is a hotline staffed by live teachers through the UFT. It's available Monday through Thursday from 4 to 7. And it's not like an automated service. It's an actual person that you get on the line. And then students can use this for homework assistance in math or really any subject. And they also have various languages available if students prefer a different language. It is a free resource that kids can use. We want the kids to try and attempt the homework. At least for our classes, we generally grade the homework on completion and not necessarily on getting all of the questions right. So as long as students are showing their work and making an attempt for every question and submitting the assignments on time, they'll get full credit for the homework. Quick slide on technology, and then I'll pass things over to Miss Sue. So all of our math classrooms are equipped with smart boards. We have class set of iPads as well for the class, about 30 or so in each room. And this year we asked the students to work with the TI-34 multi-view calculator. We asked if students could get this for their supply list for the year. It's just helpful to have a calculator for at-home use. If you're not able to obtain a calculator, that's fine. Just speak to us. We can loan some out for the year. But we do want to make sure we train the students on how to use the calculator because it is a very valuable tool that they will get on the entirety of the 7th grade exam. So that's a shift from 6th grade. 6th grade was part calculator, part non-calculator based in terms of the assessments, the state assessments. But for 7th grade, they get the calculator for the whole exam. So we generally encourage the students to use the calculator and to learn that tool strategically, especially when we get into work with percentages and some work with fractions and negatives. It can be very, very helpful. So ideally, all students can obtain this calculator for at-home use. If not, we can loan some out. Okay, Ms. Sue, do you mind picking up on the grading policy? And just let me know when you're ready for the next slide.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Miss Sue, or Elisa Sue, and I'm going to talk about the next few math slides before turning it over to Mr. Radica. So with the grading policy, 50% of the grade is based on assessments, which are like tests, quizzes, projects, and performance tasks, and 10% is on homework. And 15% is based on ALEX, and then the last 25% is classwork, which accounts for how much your child participates, their notebook, and their classwork. Next slide, please. And the best way to reach us is through Jupyter and our DOE email. And then you should also look at your child's Google Classroom because it has like important information for each class. And you can just log in through your child's account. Next slide, please. And then for their notebooks, so they should have a notebook just for math, and it should show all their work and it should be labeled. And everything needs to be done in pencil for math. And there's like the mini lesson and their writing all goes in there. And when students are absent, they're still responsible for getting the notes that they miss and copying it into their notebook. And we will be checking their notebooks weekly, and the grade will be part of their classwork grade. And this year we had asked on the supply list, we had asked for 2 notebooks, and the second notebook we've collected so they can use it like when they're done with their first notebook, they'll have a second notebook in the class ready for them to use. Next slide, please. And for The homework. So with the homework, we give out a paper packet every Monday or the first day of the week, which is due the last day of the week, which is usually Friday. And if they're not there on Monday for whatever reasons, or if they lose it, there's also a digital copy posted on Google Classroom. And this is separate from the weekly 15 ALEKS topics. And Mr. Radica is going to talk about the ALEKS program. And thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Mr. Redick, I think you're able to unmute there. Great.
Yeah, hello, I'm Andrew Redica. So I'm here to talk to you about ALEKS, which is, as you probably know, the online portion of the homework. All students are required to complete 15 topics per week generally. There are some slight variations there, but in general, 15 topics per week. The week starts Monday, the ALEKS week starts Monday and ends Sunday night. Students can complete the topics at home and at school at any point during that week. If you find that your child is struggling to complete topics or completing a lot of topics over the weekend, we suggest doing 3 every day during the week. Makes 15 after 5 school days. But it's, part of this is them learning how to manage their own time. So they've already taken an initial assessment on ALEKS, which will create the topics for them moving forward based on how they did on that initial assessment. And periodically, I would say 2 or 3 times per year. Feel free to jump in, Mr. K, if I'm wrong about the timing, but we will redo that knowledge check, and it will kind of reset the student's topics. In the past, sometimes this used to just pop up feelingly randomly sometimes, but we have stopped that. So the teachers will control when the knowledge checks pop up, but they will never count as topics unless that's like what we're doing for the week. It'll be made very clear. Only other thing on this slide for the next one is that as we get through the year, some students will complete what's called course 2, which is the 7th grade level ALEKS. And as it says in the slide, once they reach 95% or so, we will push them up to the next one. We actually push everybody up later in the year, but if students are ahead, they will get pushed ahead earlier. Next slide, please, Mr. K.
Sure. I just had a quick question here. We'll do general questions at the end, but someone asked quickly about 6th grade to 7th grade ALEKS work. When the students take the initial knowledge check, which most of them did this past week in the 7th grade, whatever topics they indicated that they've learned through that knowledge check, they'll kind of get credit for them, meaning they'll be advanced further along in the 7th grade learning continuum. So it's kind of whether or not they kind of build upon their 6th grade work depends a bit on how they do with that initial knowledge check. If it's shown that they've learned those 6th grade topics, it will accelerate them through that, and they might start at, let's say, 20 or 30% on the 7th grade continuum. Thanks. Sorry to jump in there.
No, you're fine. There are a lot of different things and going on with ALEKS, so please reach out with questions about ALEKS. It's typically something we're happy to help with, and we get a lot of questions on. ALEKS has been bought or has merged somehow with McGraw-Hill. So there is a new website for ALEKS, which the students are still getting used to. You cannot no longer go to aleks.com to get to ALEKS. You have to go to the website you can see on the board there. The students are getting the hang of it. There are still some who are forgetting and going to aleks.com. So if you run into that at home, or your password isn't working or something, it might be because of that. But if you have password issues and stuff, please just reach out to your student's math teacher. Next slide, please, Mr. K. So this here, in order, on the right side are all the different categories of topics on ALEKS for course 2, which is 7th grade. We generally advise the students to do it in order, which would be the order of that's given there. You also see there's kind of like this wheel looking, we call it the pie. If you follow the pie in order, you would be going around clockwise, which would follow the same list that's on the right. Now, students do not have to follow it in order. We suggest they do it. We'll generally follow what they learn in class, and we'll kind of go from a little bit easier to harder as they go, but it's not a requirement. There also are some topics, the ones that are boxed towards the bottom right, that are actually 8th grade topics that will be very important, as Mr. K said, in Algebra 1 next year, which is a bit of a jump for the students. So those topics, especially toward the end of the year, will become very important. I think next slide, which is the last one for me. One of our big themes with the kids this year in math and across the school is self-monitoring. So students, keeping track of their own progress, what they are doing well and what they need to work on. And on ALEKS, there are tons of resources to do this. You kind of get a sense of what the ALEKS homepage looks like for the kids on the right of this slide. On this slide, you can also see how many topics they've completed for that week. Where Mr. K's mouse is moving right now, there's a date range there. The date range can be adjusted to reflect the week of Monday to Sunday, and then your student or you can even see how many topics they've completed for the week if you want to see how many they have still to do or anything like that. And there are a bunch of different reports, so you can see kind of where that purple arrow is pointing and see what different slices of the pie or genres of topics, if you will, that students are doing well in and what they have to work on. There's a lot on ALEKS. I know I said this already, but please reach out to me or Mr. K or Miss Sue with questions about ALEKS. We are happy to help you. And that's all from me.
If you want to direct a question to the chat, if you could possibly direct it to all hosts, or if not, just to me, and we'll make sure it gets fielded at the end after the presentations. And we'll also all be available here till or online till about 7:30 tonight. If people have questions later, they can directly message any of the teachers on Jupiter or email. And just to reiterate those final points about ALEKS before we turn it over to the humanities department, we do encourage the kids to do 2 or 3 topics a night. We'll generally try to check in with them before the weekend, like maybe on a Friday, to be like, oh, you did 8 topics so far, so you need to do 7 more before Sunday night. But if they do ever want to check to see how many they've done since the Monday, they can do that from this report screen over there on the right. Okay. All right, I'm going to hand it over to humanities. Is that cool? Are you first, Ms. Combs? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ms. Combs, the 7th grade humanities. I'm sorry, I just need to fix my screen here. Okay, so I'm gonna be, I'm echoing. Sorry. So I'll just list our names and then maybe as people come in and do their slides, they can introduce themselves, although something happened here. Okay, so like I said, I'm Francesca Gomes. I do 701, 702 with Ms. McBean and sometimes Mrs. Mann, sorry. Then Ms. Keeley and Ms. DeVille do 703, 704, and Ms. Prince does 705, 706, with Ms. Mann helping out with 703. Next slide. Okay. So we're going to be going over a list of topics, our grading policy, homework, plagiarism. We'll also talk about AI, the use of AI, Google Classroom, independent reading, social studies curriculum, ELA curriculum, and student writing. In humanities, as I'm sure everybody remembers from 6th grade, the social studies curriculum and the ELA curriculum are combined together. Next one, sorry. So the grading policy and homework, the assessments like essays, projects, tests, and quizzes together are worth 40% of the grade. We also, will weigh things proportional to each other. So like a quiz might be 10 points and then an essay will be 100 points and maybe, another quiz might be 20 points. Homework and classwork is 30% of the grade. The assignments are usually posted on Google Classroom, but sometimes there are paper assignments that will go home. And so students are supposed to copy their homework into their planners so they can check their planners and they can see if there's anything that they need to do that maybe isn't going to be on Classroom and that maybe they have in their folder. Independent reading is worth 20% of the grade. We'll talk about that more. And participation is 10%, and that includes verbal and online participation. So when we're using certain platforms like Pear Deck, participation is also whether they are participating in the Pear Deck, writing some answers down. Okay, next slide, sorry. Okay, I'm turning it over to Ms. McBean.
Hi, good evening. I'm Miss McBean. I co-teach 701 and 702 with Miss Gomes. The homework policy, this is reiterating the information that was sent to you in the welcome letter in the first couple days of school, so you might recognize it. Our homework policy is that homework will only be accepted 1 day late for partial credit. Obviously, if a student is absent, they will have the opportunity to make up that work in a timely manner. However, please communicate with us, students and parents, if possible, via Jupiter to let us know when students will be out sick or if they are planning to miss days for other reasons. We can only accept homework 1 day past the due date. Otherwise, it will be a 0. Next slide, please. Plagiarism and cheating. So plagiarism, we consider copying from the internet or a classmate, using any work that is not your own, using material from a test that is not permitted by the teacher, and improper use of AI, which we will elaborate more on the next slide.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ms. Keeley. I teach 703 and 704 with Ms. DeVille, and I'm going to elaborate a little bit on our AI policy. Middle school students do have access to AI, as we all do, but they are still developing essential thinking, reasoning, and writing skills. And so for that reason, using tools like ChatGPT, we consider that an opportunity to prevent genuine learning and misrepresenting a student's abilities. So for this reason, AI tools are not to be used for schoolwork unless a teacher gives explicit permission and guidance. We do, as part of our policy, we have steps for if we see IA use being, if we suspect that we are seeing AI use, teachers will meet with the student to discuss the concern. Parents or guardians will also be informed. We will give students the opportunity to revise and resubmit by a set due date. But if that assignment is not resubmitted, a 0 will be entered. After that first problem, if misuse of AI continues, assignments may receive a 0 without an opportunity to resubmit them.
Hi, I'm Miss Prince. I teach 705 and 706, and I'm going to start talking to you guys about independent reading. So independent reading, it's a part of our class where students actually get the opportunity to choose what they want to read. There's going to be a book project each marking period, and part of our homework is that students should be reading 30 minutes each night. Our classroom libraries are filled with books, and we have a lot of diversity in the books that we let our students choose. And students also, part of their independent reading work is going to be working on iReady Learning Path lessons. And they should be completing at least 45 minutes of those lessons per week.
Hello, everyone. I am Miss DeVille. I am the humanities teacher for classes 703 and 704, along with Miss Keeley. So in our 7th grade humanities classrooms, they are highly collaborative environments. And we also recognize that there are many different ways that students can read a text or engage with text. So that may include hearing, speaking, writing, seeing, collaborating, group work, and more. And this allows our work in humanities to be accessible and provides lots of different ways for students to interact with text so they can process things in different ways and also learn what modes of engagement work best for them. We also want to emphasize empowering students to become critical thinkers and educated citizens. A lot of our curriculum in 7th grade humanities is about heavy hitting aspects of American history, and there's also a government and civics component. So it's very much knowledge that they will need for the real world and will need to be empowered citizens in our country and in the world. So there's a lot of inquiry-based work. There's a lot of discussion every day going on in humanities. And with inquiry, we want to emphasize that students are thinking for themselves and not just necessarily looking to the teachers for the right or the correct answer. But sort of considering that sometimes there are multiple answers, multiple different pathways, multiple different ways to look at things. And that having open-ended questions is really important, not just always giving students closed questions where there's only one right answer. And that will also help build their critical thinking skills. And we have already begun our first unit of study in 7th grade humanities. So for the first marking period from now until the beginning of December, we're working with a novel study. Our novel is Chains by Lori Hall Sanderson. I'm sure that many of your students have already come home and been talking about the book if they've gotten into it. So Chains is a really gripping novel. It's about a young enslaved girl in the 1700s. And the story takes place right at the cusp of the American Revolution. And there are lots of different angles and questions that we're exploring over the course of the 3 months that we work with the book. And the overarching theme is Isabel, the main character's struggle for freedom from oppression, specifically fighting against her enslavement and her sister's enslavement. So with this unit, we're looking at the history and legacy of the era of enslavement in American history. And we also do touch on systemic racism and the legacy and impact of enslavement, as well as systemic racism as it relates to the past and also to the present.
Okay, my name is Mrs. Mann. I'm the 7th and 8th grade ENL teacher. Just continuing with the second trimester curriculum, which includes history of abolitionists and activists and their contributions. We focus on Nat Turner, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Harriet Beecher Stowe, John Brown. We also work with the Constitution and the workings of the government, including the Supreme Court, featuring landmark court cases. And we have an argument unit with analysis of arguments on various topics and research on self-chosen topics.
To continue with the third trimester, students actually get to write their own argument essay on a self-chosen research topic. They also do a short story unit, which is really, really fun, where we read a lot of short stories and then actually end up writing our own. So we analyze a lot of the use of author's craft in those model stories and then end up creating their own stories based on those texts. And ready for the next one. Awesome. We're going to be doing a lot of student writing in humanities. There's going to be some formative writing, like reading responses, creative journaling, quick writes, and just some other informational writing activities. But for summative assessments, things that might count as an assessment on Jupyter, you will see things like paragraphs. We use the TAKA format, same as 6th grade. We also will have a literary essay about theme coming up, especially thinking about our novel Chains that we're reading together, an argument essay, and a creative short story. And I did get a question, for the essay, are there options to choose from? I think they're referring to the argument essay, and yes, there are topics to choose from. We're going to provide a lot of research and a lot of structure to help the students depending on what topic they choose. So they'll have a bunch of different options and then they get to choose from there. Awesome. And I think that's it for writing. Thank you. And this is all our contact information. The best way to reach us is actually Jupyter. If you just put our name into the Jupyter message, it will pop up and you guys can reach out with any questions or concerns about your child's learning. Awesome. And then, oh yeah, check Google Classroom. There's always reminders on there. And contact us again on Jupyter if there are any questions.
Thank you. And we're getting people's questions here. So yeah, so Ms. Gomes are answering some individually. We're capturing all of them. If there's any questions that are duplicates, at the end of all the presentations, we'll try to collate them and field as many questions as we can. So thank you. You can keep adding those to the chats. Thank you, Humanities Department. We're going to turn it over to Science. If Mr. Paternoster, you're able to unmute. I'm going to go off to the Science slides now. Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Hi, I'm Mr. Paternostro. I teach science to all the 7th graders at New Voices. Next slide. So 7th grade science is kind of just a prelude to 8th grade science. So we're starting to prepare students to take their biology regents, which comes at the end of 8th grade. So yeah, I'm just starting to expose students to the topics that they're going to see in 8th grade. So by the time they get there, they're ready. They're already familiar with most of the stuff that they're going to be introduced to in 8th grade. And we just want to set up our students for success to pass the regents and to get their high school regents credits. Next slide. So this is the grading policy for science. 30% of the grades are coming from tests and quizzes. So they're going to have a test at the end of each unit. We have 6 units, and there's typically a quiz that they're going to get halfway through the unit. So 6 quizzes and 6 tests. The rest of the grades are coming straight from the binder that all the students have. So everything you see there, lab work, classwork, homework, participation, it's pretty much all coming from the organizers that they're keeping organized in their binders. And this is 95% of this is work that we're doing together in class. So as long as students are keeping up with the work in class or doing the work and, doing their best, then that's a 65-70% right there. Without taking a quiz or a test, they're set up for success as long as they're working hard. So if students are not doing well, it means that they're just not keeping up and going along with the work we're doing in class. Next slide. So yeah, this is just more about the binders. Again, just the majority of student work we are doing together in class. I'm really not giving much homework in science, maybe 1 or 2 homework assignments per unit, and it's very little. So pretty much the majority of the grade is going to be all from the work that's in their binder. So I'm asking students to just go home, since I'm not really assigning homework, just to go home, look over the organizer from the day, and just make sure they've answered all the questions, completed everything to the best of their ability, and just to kind of review. And then that's going to help them do well on the tests and quizzes as well. I post the slides and the material, or the digital organizer, I post daily to Google Classroom. So if a student needs to go back through the slides just to kind of help refresh and make sure they understand the material, that is there for them in Google Classroom. Or if the students are absent, they'll also be able to access everything through Google Classroom. And I also keep the organizers for 1 week. I keep a 1 week rotation of all the papers. So if students are absent, I ask them to stay on top of it to make sure they come in. The first thing they should do is to grab whatever they missed, and then they can use the slides posted to Google Classroom, follow along, and be able to complete their work. Aside from that, they can always ask other students for help. Okay, next slide. I'm just going to quickly go through the units, 6 units. The first unit, which we're about halfway through right now, is scientific inquiry. So this is just kind of like the fundamentals of science that we're going to carry through the rest of the year. So it's all about setting up experiments and a lot of graphing practice and things we're going to use consistently throughout the year. The second unit is our chemistry unit. We're just gonna cover the very basics of chemistry. We'll save the harder stuff for high school. So just introducing students to atoms and molecules and bonds and things like that. And we'll do some fun labs in that unit. And the next unit, we're going to start to learn about living things. So what makes living things alive? We're going to learn about the characteristics of all living things and what they share. And then the following unit, unit 4, we're going to learn kind of where chemistry and biology meet. So the biochemical processes that occur in all living things. And then the unit 5 after that, we're going to learn about organ systems, and mostly focusing on humans and our body systems and how those organ systems work together to keep us healthy and maintain a safe, healthy internal environment that we call homeostasis. And unit 6, this is our final unit. This is ecology. So that's the fun stuff. We're learning about, plants and animals and ecosystems and how organisms interact with those ecosystems. And that's about it for me. You can contact me through Jupiter. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Paternostro. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, we're gonna turn the PowerPoint into a PDF, and that will be shared with everyone and posted also. So I know there's a lot of information going by here. But we're recording the session. We're also going to convert this to a PDF that we'll share with everyone. Okay, great. Now I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Neeson to talk about the French department.
Okay, bonsoir. So I teach all 7th and 8th grade students. I have them 2 years for French, and I see them twice a week. The 7th grade, I see Mondays and Tuesdays. The only class I see Wednesdays is 704. So your child will have class with me Monday or Tuesday, or if they're in 704, Tuesday and Wednesday. The goal of our class is to communicate in French as much as possible. I really reiterate on a daily basis that we will make mistakes, we'll learn from them, we try again. For some students, that's easy to accept. They speak multiple languages at home. Other students who are learning another language for the first time, it can be a tough thing to kind of accept that, like, yeah, you're going to sound silly and you're going to make mistakes. And that's part of the learning process. So just getting them to embrace that making mistakes is part of the process. And it's not something they should take personal, that if they screw up or make mistakes, that's something that they can improve on. The mindset in the class is really to just embrace mistakes. As I said, it's taking risks, knowing that they're willing to try something new is part of the process. I love mistakes, and the only normal way to begin speaking a new language is to begin speaking badly. I tell them essentially they're babies in class because they have a limited vocabulary and they'll grow. And before they can learn to crawl and walk, they have to make those mistakes. And I tell them if they have siblings, they know how many times their siblings fell when they were learning to walk. That's just part of the process and accepting that. So grading is assessments, which includes quizzes, homeworks, projects, is 70% of the grade. Participation is 30%. I have them self-evaluate and we have a conversation, but basically the 4 things I'm looking for on those 2 days a week that I see them is to participate by using the new language as much as possible. When they converse with their classmates or me, that they speak in the language, including questions, even if they make mistakes, using resources in the classroom when needed, and then just not needing a reminder to speak in French when they can. So far, they've just learned classroom expressions. So those are the only things I expect them to use. Next week, we're going to start our first unit. They'll learn how to greet each other. So at home, you should ask them to teach you the greetings in French. Policies, homework needs to be done on time. For me, since I only see them twice a week, I allow them 2 weeks to complete any late assignments, but they can only earn half credit. Quizzes, it's the same thing. If they're absent for a quiz, they have 2 weeks to make it up. For me, quizzes are all open notes, and that's to encourage good note taking so that they can use those notes on the quizzes. I don't want them to feel pressured to do great on a quiz and not have the access to those notes. So that's what I encourage. They're all usually very short quizzes. They take a few minutes. We do them in the middle of class. Literally everything we do is posted to Classroom. So if they're absent, if they forgot something, please go check Google Classroom with them or just remind them to do that. Any handouts that I give out in class, digital copies are available in Classroom. Jupiter just simply has grades, and it's the best way to message me. And then just to end, just to give you a preview of the 3 units that we'll do this year. The first one's Bienvenue au cours de français, and these are the enduring understandings that we'll discuss, essential questions, things like greetings, numbers, school supplies, colors. Those are the kind of the first few things we do. In our second unit of the year, it's about likes and dislikes. If you could go to the next slide, if you could, Steven. Basically, they'll be able to describe things they like to do, school subjects they like, sports that they do, activities outside of school. And then to end the year, we start a unit on food, and it's actually what they will continue when they come back in 8th grade. So it's a fun way to end the year. The only other thing I didn't include in the slide, but I basically have the same policy as far as AI. If students are ever tempted to use tools that are not, including their notes, it'll be like the first time as it is for humanities. They'll get an opportunity to redo it, but if it subsequently happens again, they just lose a privilege. I don't grade homework on accuracy. I grade homework on completion. So it's knowing that they'll make mistakes. As long as they complete work on time, homework is just graded on completion. So it's, again, just to encourage the mindset that we have in class that mistakes are part of the process.
Okay, great. Mr. Nason, did you get to that last slide? You're all set?
I did, yeah. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. All right, I'm not sure if Mr. McDonough is able to unmute and come on, but if not, I can read the slides for Jim for PE. So Mr. McDonough is our gym teacher, physical education teacher. These are some of the slides that he shared with us. Just go over some of the basic rules and expectations. So please respect yourself and one another's, stay on your feet, have fun to do your best, try to wear shoes that are somewhat athletic shoes, I suppose. Don't interrupt others. Please use good sportsmanship. Please be mindful of equipment. Don't touch equipment without permission, and take care of the gym facility, which is located on the first floor off of the side of the cafeteria. There's some national PE standards there on the left. I'll just read through some of these goals that Mr. McD put out here. So the goal of physical education is to develop physically literate individuals who have the knowledge, skills, and confidence to enjoy a lifetime of healthful physical activity. To pursue a lifetime of healthful physical activity, a physically literate individual has learned the skills necessary to participate in a variety of physical activities, knows the implications and benefits of involvement in various types of activities, participates regularly in physical activity, strives to be physically fit, and values physical activity and its contributions to a healthful lifestyle. There are some national standards here, sort of gives you sort of the basic rundown. I think most of the students have gym twice a week this year on their schedules. And if you have any other specific questions about PE, please direct those to Mr. McDonough. He's available on Jupiter. Okay, we're still compiling questions. I don't know if at the end, if there's any questions that Ms. Gomes hasn't responded to individually that maybe we want to discuss. I'll go over now into the cell phone policy. Just going to read this out. Mr. Giordano also sent a detailed Jupiter message to all members of the school community, I think a short while ago this afternoon, sort of delineating the specifics of the cell phone policy, but I'm just going to read this slide here as well. So this is a new state policy that comes from the governor that affects all public schools, or possibly some private schools as well, throughout the state. So students may not use any personal internet-enabled devices during the school day. So that includes not only cellular phones, but also smart wearables, such as smartwatches that may be connected to the internet, things of that nature. All devices will be collected in the morning during AM homeroom. That's between 8:15 and 8:30, and stored securely in locked facilities. Each of the students has been given a pouch with their name on it in their homeroom class. They'll put their phones and any other wearable devices in the pouch and zip it closed. And then the homeroom teachers will collect everyone's phones inside the pouches, put those in a sealed container, and lock those in the teacher classroom closet. So all the cell phones will be under lock and key during the school day. And we ask that students power the phones off before they put them into the sleeves. Okay. Devices will be returned to students during PM homeroom, which is from 2:30 p.m. to 2:35. Students who arrive late to school, so that's kind of beyond, I guess, like 8:25, 8:30, that aren't able to make homeroom, they will hand their device in upon entering the building, or they will turn it in to room 310 here on the 3rd floor. And then any students that arrive late that day can pick up their phones from room 310 at dismissal at 2:30, 2:35. If during the school day, a student does need to contact home, they should come to room 310, and with permission, they will be able to use the phone there in the office. If you need to contact your child during the school day, please call the school directly on our landline. I've placed the number there, 718-965-0390. That's the phone number to the school, and we will get the information or connect you to your child. Mr. Giordano also put some more information there. You can also reach out to Miss Enid Para, our parent coordinator, on Jupiter or email, and we will get a message to your child or make sure they get in touch with you should there be some reason for you to need to speak with them before 2:30. Okay, if there are, I know that's a lot of information there. Again, I ask you to check Jupiter. Mr. Giordano sent out a very extensive email about an hour or so ago, kind of fleshing out the specifics of this policy and just sort of going over a few of the logistics that I just described there. We understand this is a new policy, so of course there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve with that, but we have a good structure set up. And we're going to be starting implementing this policy. I think it's Friday that all the homeroom teachers, I know a couple may have started today, but at least for my homeroom, we'll be starting this tomorrow and going over the specifics with the students. Lastly, I just want to go over, just make sure everyone has these dates written down. We have 3 marking periods or trimesters. So the first trimester runs through the first day of school until Friday, December 5th. Later this year. And then trimester 2 runs from early December until Thursday, March 19th of 2026. And then the final trimester is classes and assignments that are done from kind of mid-March there until the end of June. Okay. All right. Yeah, there's 1 or 2. Do you want to come over real quick? Yeah. So if you have any other questions, we're still fielding a few coming through. Just keep putting those in the chat, and maybe we can field a couple on the line.
I think everything that has come in before
Okay.
very recently, some are very recent.
Yeah, there's 1 or 2 that just popped in originally. Ms. Gomes has been responding individually to as many people as possible. There was a question about supply lists. If you reach out to your child's teacher, they can provide you an additional copy of the 7th grade supply list. I believe there was one on the website. I don't have the link handy at some point, but we can repost the supply list to the Google Classroom pages as well. It's one list for all of the academic subjects. Okay. Do you want to unmute and?
No, I just want to be able to consider people.
Okay. Yeah, so we're going to keep the session live for about another 5 or 10 minutes. If people want to still enter some questions into the chat, we can respond to you individually. Or Jupiter message would be great as well. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I don't know if there's any teachers that needed to jump in with any other remarks or whatnot. So just a quick question here. I can speak to it a little bit about Alex. We do a knowledge check at the beginning of the year, and usually that's a pretty good placement for what the students are able to learn. It kind of shows what they've mastered and then what kind of topics they're able to field. There is a question here about sometimes students getting topics that they're finding to be a little difficult. So definitely have them check in with their teacher, whether that's me, Miss Sue, Mr. Redica, or Miss Mitchell. And we can help them select topics in ALEX that might be more accessible to them. It is a range of content, so there is some 6th and 7th grade material there, and it does expose them to some 8th grade material. We like to continue to challenge them to get a little bit of that exposure because we really do have a bridge class in the math department where we're kind of doing 2 years of mathematics in one. So we kind of use ALEX to kind of bridge that gap as we accelerate them into Algebra 1 next year. So there are some times when the topics can be a little bit challenging for the students. And we can certainly, help them on a one-to-one basis to work through some of those topics. If they're still having a lot of trouble with it, what we can do periodically, and sometimes we do this at the middle of the year, is we can give the students another knowledge check, which will kind of reset where they are in the learning continuum. And that might open up topics that are a little bit more accessible to them. Okay. I'm unable, someone asked if I could post the chat questions. I'm unable to do that right now, but we'll try to compile like sort of a summary of them when we put together the PDF with the PowerPoint presentation. There was a question that I don't. You want to jump in with it?
So is that a question about NIA? Do you mind putting that in the chat?
I believe the phones fully returned after school. It's here in the building.
But so the procedure for NIA, it is a separate program, so we will need to check in. But I will refer this question.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
Yeah.
There were a couple questions about standardized testing that just came in. Oh yeah. So for 7th grade standardized testing, there's the 7th grade math exam, which typically is the first week of May. There's a bit of an administration window, so the exact date hasn't been finalized, but it will be in early May for math. And for ELA, I think it's the 2nd or 3rd week of September. Is that right, Ms. Combs? I'm sorry, April. Okay, no, it's no worries. Yeah, I think ELA is going to be the 2nd or 3rd week of April, and then the state exam for math comes following that in May. Next year, some of the exams are a little later, with the Regents exams being in June, but in 7th grade, it's going to be similar to 6th grade, with ELA being in April and the math exams being in May. Those are the two main standardized tests that the kids are generally asked to take. The specialized high school exam, that's not going to be until the fall of the 8th grade. So that'll be in October or November of 2026 for the 7th grade students. In math, we do a little bit of preparation for the SHSAT. We do give students some preparatory material, some enrichment packets with some prior questions from previous SHSAT exams. And just to clarify, this is the test for some of the specialized high schools: Stuyvesant, Brooklyn Tech, Bronx Science, Brooklyn Latin. I don't think LaGuardia is based on the exam anymore. I think it's just auditions and grades. But that would be for the fall of 8th grade. So there'll be more information about that down the line. There's a question that just came in about extra credit for the classes. Generally in math, for Miss Sue and I, we don't do too many extra credit assignments. We do yeah, and I don't believe humanities has extra credit at all. In math, we do allow the students for their quizzes to do sometimes like multiple attempts for the quizzes. So there's opportunities for them to boost their grade that way, but we don't do any formal extra credit assignments. I don't know if science or French wanted to speak to any extra credit.
Yeah, I actually give extra credit. Something I actually wanted to mention, I forgot. So for not really the quizzes, but for the unit tests in science, I allow students to create a cheat sheet. Well, usually I provide a template that they fill out, so they can actually use that for their tests. And not only that, but they also get extra credit for completing it. So it's just kind of a way to get them to, really review through their notes and be, as prepared as they can for their test. So I just reward them with some extra credit for that.
Thank you.
For French, there's no extra credit, but there are two ways students can easily bring up the grade. First is participation, and the second is also on certain assessments, they can actually score higher than 100 because the expectations I put on some speaking tests, which will be much later in the year, they can score higher than 100. So that's a way they can also basically get extra credit.
A question just came through about homework volume. Talking a bit about how with sixth grade, it was sometimes hard to manage across all the subjects. We do understand, that students, have more subjects than our own. I know my students have humanities homework. They may have French, science homework, and other responsibilities after 2:30 p.m. So we keep that weekly packet pretty short, at least in math. It's really never more than 2 pages, and the students have the whole week to do it. I don't know, Masu, if you wanted to jump in a little bit more about kind of the volume, but it's really no more than 10 or 15 minutes per night. Like each of those pages should not take more than 10 minutes to complete. And if they break it up throughout the week, kind of Monday through Friday, it's pretty manageable. If the students ever need an extension and need some more time for the homework, at least for math, please speak to us and we can try to figure something out. And we also try to build in time for the students to work on ALEKS topics a little bit in school as well. So we try to be cognizant of the workload for homework and kind of balance that with other subjects.
Sorry.
You can just unmute on your end. Yeah, you're fine. I'll stop the echo.
Also, like in homeroom, a lot of times the students they can work on their homework or on ALEKS topics.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You're good.
Just to go back to homework load, humanities really has very little homework. We do require students to read independently for half an hour every night, but that's a book that they've chosen for themselves. So yeah, they do need to read independently, but we do not give anything like busy work or everything has a purpose and there's not that much done at home. Usually what students may have to do at home for humanities, other than the odd short homework assignment, sometimes they will want to continue to work on something. Or if they got extremely distracted during class and they could not finish it, they can finish it at home that night. So if a student is, basically on task in class and working in class, they should not get much homework in humanities at all, which should give them plenty of time for, science and ALEKS.
I don't know if any other departments wanted to jump in about homework really quick. Okay. One question just came through about ALEKS. How does ALEKS complement what the students are learning in the classroom? It's a great question. Sometimes there's going to be direct overlap with what the students are doing in ALEKS. We certainly use it to do assignments sometimes, but at different points, they might be working on a topic that maybe we previously covered or something that hasn't quite come up. ALEKS is really kind of meant to be like a corollary, somewhat self-exploratory online course that kind of runs parallel to what we're doing in class. So sometimes there's alignment with the specific domains of math that we're looking at, and other times the kids are exploring, different topics. We like to give the students flexibility there with kind of, having the ability to explore those different math domains and not kind of be locked into just doing one type of problem. We like to have a little bit of spiral review and spiral explanation there, or exploration with the different concepts. Having said that, we do generally, as Mr. Redica outlined when he went over the ALEKS slides, we want them to kind of work clockwise through the pie slices, and that'll kind of cover the general flow that which we'll work through in class. So for instance, like we've already done, the students have some prior knowledge with like fractions and decimals, and now we're moving into ratios and proportions. And that's one of the pie slices that they can explore to further kind of build up their knowledge in the areas that we're exploring in class. So there's some overlap, and there's places where they kind of dive into, other topics kind of independently. All right, it's 5:31. I'm going to capture whatever other questions have not been fielded. If you didn't have a question answered, please again, just message the relevant teacher on Jupyter and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Awesome. Was there anything else that people needed to jump in with from the teachers? We're good. Okay. All right, we're gonna. Thank you, Ms. Mann. Thank you, everyone. All right, I'm going to close off the meeting in a minute so people can sign out. But again, the arts presentation, I believe, starts at 6. The link is in the same email that Mr. Giordano sent to everyone a couple days ago. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for emceeing, Mr. K.
Anytime.
Thanks, Steven.